On April the 6th, Bellamy Beaver, the mascot for the Ichetucknee Partnership, visited Tallahassee and the state capitol. Bellamy's visit was in conjunction with the state legislature's passage of a resolution making April Springs Awareness Month in Florida. A press conference was held with Bellamy Beaver and members of the Florida House, the Florida Senate, and representatives of the state water management districts who spoke in support of the resolution.
Well, goodness, welcome everyone. Welcome here today for what has become an annual event, our recognition of Springs Awareness Month. So glad to see such a great crowd and so glad to be supported here by my colleagues and our friends at the Department of Environmental Protection and Water Management District, regardless of which district or whether or not they left us. But happy to have each and every one of you here. Just to kick things off, I'd like to welcome Bellamy Beaver, who is sort of our unofficial mascot of the Ichetucknee River. And I don't think there's anyone in this room. I don't think there is anyone in this room who I need to explain what the Ichetucknee River is. And our thanks to Bellamy for being here as part of the Ichetucknee Partnership, who makes a really great point of looking out for the Ichetucknee River and raising awareness of the springs in general. So as for my comments, I would just like to say that it's my pleasure, it has been my pleasure, and will continue to be for the time that I have remaining here in the House to be the sponsor in the House of Springs Awareness Month. It's such a huge part of our state and our economy and the legacy that we're going to be leaving to our children and their children and generations beyond. And I think we just need to make sure that we keep everyone very aware of just how important and how precious these springs are. We have made a lot of strides over the time that I've been here, at least in Tallahassee, and I have been here to see the recognition of the importance of the springs in the state of Florida among my colleagues and the governor's office, Senate, House, and the organizations that typically think of the Everglades. That has always been the big buzz phrase, was the Everglades. And now we have some recognition for the springs as well, and that makes me very happy. As my daughter would say, it makes my heart happy that we have gotten to that point now. So we have made these wonderful strides. We have dedicated dollars that come to springs protection and restoration every year, and now is certainly not the time to take any steps backward. We need to make sure that we continue to fund the protection and the restoration of our springs. And as I say, I have a group of some wonderful people here who have some things to say. Please come up. You need to be up here too. Kathleen, come up. Another one of our colleagues, come on. Here to support Springs Awareness Month. So we will kick off, if I may. It is my honor to present and introduce, and so happy to do so, a partner that I can't say enough about as far as having someone to work with on the Senate side. He's fantastic. He really takes this district to heart, and he has the springs as much as at heart as anyone, and that is Senator Bradley.
Thank you, Representative Porter, and I tell you, there is no better champion for springs and for our area of the state than Liz Porter in her time here in the legislature, and I'm honored to sponsor the Spring Awareness Month recognition on the Senate side, and Liz Porter, of course, is the one who has sponsored that important legislation on the House side. She's absolutely right. There was a time when I think we took for granted these wonderful God-given natural resources that we've inherited, known as springs. Our springs presence is unlike any in the world. We have unique treasures that no one else enjoys. And I can tell that there has been a real awakening and recognition of how important springs are to our character as a state, to who we are as a state. And when the voters voted for Amendment 1 in 2014, I think they spoke loud and clear that they expect the state government to do its part to make sure that these resources are protected for future generations. And in response to the voters' clear voice on Amendment 1, the House and the Senate came together last year with the Legacy Florida bill that put aside $50 million annually for springs protection. And those dollars are now flowing like a spring to north central Florida. And Representative Porter is right. I mean, I'm the sponsor of Senate Bill 10, which deals with the Lake Okeechobee discharges. But I will tell you, having grown up in Green Cove Springs, that's my hometown. It was named after a spring. These North Florida springs are something that's closer to my heart than any part of the state, because it's just a part of who we are in North Florida and makes us different than any other place in the state or any other place in the world. So we have so many partners here today from the water management districts and the DEP, and we certainly want to hear about from them about all the good work they're doing. I'm proud in this year's budget that the Senate included $50 million for more springs restoration, and I hope that when we bring this thing home, that the two sides are on the same page when it comes to that funding, because I think that is something that's embedded in Legacy Florida, and it's something that we need to continue to live up to that promise that we made when that passed. And I know that Liz Porter and Chuck Clemens, Representative Clemens, who's here, that I'm about to introduce, are very supportive of making sure that becomes a reality. I want to introduce Representative Clemens, who is just joined us in the legislature, and he already is incredibly well respected in Tallahassee, is making a wonderful reputation for himself, and the people of North Central Florida should be proud and glad that he's a part of our team moving forward. So my friend Chuck, I want to introduce you and give us some good words. And if it's, hey, Bellamy's here, it's a party, right?
Thank you, Senator Bradley, and thanks, Representative Porter, for making Springs awareness first and foremost on all of our minds. And I think that awareness is certainly the first step. I remember Ichetucknee. I had an aunt that lived in Fort White, and so when I was about 3 years old, I started getting into the cold water of the spring at Ichetucknee. I learned to swim in Post Springs, which was abutting our little chicken farm in High Springs. But you know, something's happened in the last 55 years. When I swam in the springs when I was a little boy, the river grass, it didn't have little green things that it was affixed to it. It has degraded. And it's degraded because in 1963 there was only 6 million people that lived in Florida. We've got 20 million and we're expecting another 6 million more. The work that Representative Porter is doing, Senator Bradley, Representative Peters is doing to bring not only awareness to the springs, but to bring assets to help remedy some of the challenges that the population increase in Florida has had in the last 55 years. I'm happy to be a part of this, happy to be here today, and I would like to bring my colleague, Representative Peters, to the dais now, and she has some words to share with you. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. And absolutely, we have to restore our springs. It's our number one. We all know that water is our number one most important resource that we have. And we had people that used to drive thousands of miles for medicinal purposes to get inside our springs because of the healing factor that came with it. And now some of those springs are just empty caves. And so we do have a responsibility to preserve our natural springs and to try and bring them back to where they were. But we also have a responsibility to every single one of our waterways. And we have a responsibility to protect our environment. And so just like the pollution notification bills that have been filed to ensure that people know if something has gotten polluted or it's gotten into our waterway or there's a risk, we need to be letting people know, and we need to be holding people accountable. And so it is my privilege and my honor to be working with these wonderful, fine people to write good laws and good policies that not only restore our springs but protect our environment and the rest of our waterways. Thank you so much.
We have some fantastic partners here that are helping us today, and as much as we can do as legislators, we could not do it without our agency partners. And the first partner that I would like to introduce today is DEP Interim Secretary Ryan Matthews, who is going to tell us a little bit about how the DEP is helping us with the health of the springs. Secretary?
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here today with Representative Porter, Rep. Clemens, Rep. Peters, and Senator Bradley. Thank you all for what you do and your constant commitment when it comes to our beautiful springs. I'd like to touch on a little bit of the collaborative effort that it takes to restore and ensure that our springs are thriving throughout this state. We really could not do it first without Governor Scott and the legislature, who in the last 4 years have appropriated $135 million for springs protection. Now that $135 million through leveraging with our water management district partners and local governments has turned into $268 million worth of springs project. That's something that certainly needs to be celebrated and I think goes unrecognized a lot. So I'd like to thank the governor and the legislature for their hard work on that. Our water management district folks are doing fantastic work. We have Dr. Shortell from St. John's, Noah from Swanee, John Costello is here in lieu of Brett Cyphers at Northwest Florida. I'd also like to introduce Tom Frick. Tom is the head of our Division of Ecosystems Restoration, which would set basin management action plans, which helps for the water quality aspects in protection of those springs. You know, you have both water quality and quantity benefits to the protection of these springs and ensuring that that influx of people that Representative Clemens spoke of earlier that are constantly moving to our state for our natural resources and the benefits that they provide will be accounted for. So that's something that is incredibly important to the department. The collaborative and cooperative effort that we've seen through the governor, the legislature, our water management districts, and local governments has really been something astounding over the last 4 years or so, and we've been very happy to see that. So thank you all. I look forward to the continued cooperation.
We have Ann Shortell here. She's the executive director of the St. Johns River Water Management District. The various water management districts in the north each have springs that they are important partners in making sure that that those get taken care of. But I'm going to introduce Ann, my dear friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's been an exciting time to be in public service because I think our springs are garnering the respect and the delicate care that we all know that they need. They're the gems of North Florida, and we are all now gathered and working together to meet the challenges of 20 million people in the state and more, and restoring them and keeping them as a statewide resource for all of us. Starting with the governor and his leadership on springs funding and springs protection, followed by the leaders in the legislature that you see here today. This couldn't happen without them. That's just plain and simple. So we thank everybody, and I don't know if, we have Bellamy here, but I feel like maybe Representative Porter ought to have some sort of a crown on. The Queen of Springs. She has been tireless on this effort, and she's brought a lot of us along with her. From St. John's perspective, we have a number of springs with a number of challenges. And since 2014, I'm happy to report that almost 70 projects have been initiated or completed: water conservation, water supply, alternative water supplies to take the pressure off the groundwater, springs restoration, reducing, putting them on a nutrient diet so that they begin to mirror what we remember from years gone by. And this is an outstanding challenge. It was said by the secretary, takes collaboration, it takes everybody working together, and that's absolutely true. From our standpoint, our governing board has put up $36 million to date for these projects, and there isn't an end in sight with the legislature behind us and the governor behind us and all of our local cooperators behind us. So thank you so much, and we do appreciate the leadership in this room today. Thank you.
Well, Next, and certainly not least, because the Ichetucknee Spring, whom Bellamy is here to represent today, is right in the heart of Swanee River Water Management District. And the director that I am going to be introducing next is someone who has been a real partner and a pleasure to work with, and he has some really amazing stories to tell about some projects that are going to improve the health of Ichetucknee Spring and River, and it is my hope that these kinds of projects will be replicated in many areas around the state where springs are currently impacted. So again, it's my pleasure to introduce Executive Director Noah Valenstein. Please.
Thank you, Representative Porter and this delegation. I want to first say thank you for hosting this event each year and really shining a spotlight on the importance of springs, not just to our economy, but in North Florida, it's really a way of life for us. Without the leadership of Governor Scott and this delegation, we wouldn't have seen funding, as the Secretary mentioned, go from essentially $0 to $50 million a year in just the last few years. But your leadership hasn't ended there. Really, the leadership of this delegation, that I think may be one of the most important things, is serving as a role model for working together, because it's through working together we can achieve more for the protection of our resources. And at the Swanee River Water Management District, we really try to take that to heart. And so recently we've reinvigorated the Swanee River Partnership. This is a voluntary incentive-based program where we're trying to get all our stakeholders together around the same table to do just that, work together to achieve more for the protection of our resources. And we think we're seeing really special things because of that, again, due to your leadership. Recently, we had a ribbon cutting for a tremendous project, the largest wetland treatment system in Swanee River Water Management District. It's converting the spray field at the wastewater treatment center for Lake City into a 120-acre wetland treatment system, benefiting not only the quantity of water in the Ichetucknee system, but also the quality of water. We also recently had a check presentation for a project in the county of Alachua, and this was to protect really an iconic karst system that for years folks have talked about. And so the project would both acquire land and then construct a stormwater treatment system to protect the quality of water entering into Mill Creek Sink. And these two projects, I think one of the important things about them is they wouldn't have happened. So for instance, the Mill Creek Sink project, if it had just been a city project, or if it had just been a county project, or it had just been a district project, it wouldn't have happened. It had to be a cooperative community project. The same is true with the wetland treatment system. And the real success has been working together to achieve more for the protection of our environment. And we thank you for your leadership. On behalf of Chairman Quincy and the rest of our board, we thank you for really shining a spotlight on the importance of our resources. Thank you.
All right, well, we are certainly not at the end of our list of people who have the best interest of the springs at heart. And we have to remember this is not just about the Ichetucknee, this is not just about North Central Florida. There are springs all over our state for the most part, and we want to make sure that they all receive as much attention as the Ichetucknee does. So it is now my pleasure to introduce John Costello, who is the Northwest Florida Water Management District governing board member, and he's going to talk about how important it is to West Florida as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me this afternoon. As many of my friends up here can attest, if I get up to speak in this building, normally it's because I'm not happy about something. But in this case, I'm very happy to be here to talk about the funding that we've been receiving and look to continue to receive for springs preservation and restoration. Representing the northwest part of the state, where we have 256 springs, this money is very important to us. And I just wanted to take a couple seconds to say thank you on behalf of the rest of the board members, Brett, who could not be here today. But it's the leadership within the legislature, the governor's office, DEP, and really the fine people that actually do the work day in and day out at these water management districts that is really making the difference. So with that, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the time.
All right, well, and last but certainly not least, a very important component to what we are trying to accomplish here. We have the state leaders that work very hard. We have the agencies. We have the governor's office. But there is another component that makes this all work, and that is our local partners. And, you see an example here in Bellamy Beaver. Put her there, Bellamy. Come on, don't leave me hanging. All right. You see an example here of what a local entity can do when they really put their minds into the health of the springs and recognize what kind of an economic engine and what kind of a treasure the springs are. And so I would love to see this kind of interest and this kind of activity all over the state from communities that have springs of their own that they want to protect. So I would like to call up the members of the local Ichetucknee Partnership to come up and stand here with your baby, Bellamy Beaver. That means all of you. Come on, don't be shy. And let's please encourage all of our local folks to get together and form these kind of partnerships with the state and the governor's office and our agencies. And let's make sure that we do keep the springs first and foremost. So thank you guys for all you do at the local level. We couldn't do it without you.
If you'd like to find out more about the mission of the Ichetucknee Partnership, visit this website, ichetuckneeforever.org. Or you could write to 162 South Marion Avenue, Lake City, Florida 32025. Or email Abby at lakecitychamber.com. The Ichetucknee Partnership phone number is 386-752-3690. This program was produced by the Media and Public Information Department at Florida Gateway College.